Welcome to the Game Time Show. I'm Adam Opp, and I'm alongside my partner, Alec Einstein, and we are happy to be with you guys again for another episode of Game Time. Today, we will be featuring March Madness, the NFL, and our Chicago sports segment. But starting it off with the news of Roy Williams that he's retiring from North Carolina after 33 seasons.
Yeah, sad day. Roy Williams is one of the best coaches in college basketball history. It'll be interesting to see what North Carolina does with this job opening because it's a top 3 job in college basketball.
Absolutely. So now going on to March Madness and recapping the Sweet 16 games, starting it off in the West region with Gonzaga Creighton. What did you see from this dominant Zags win?
Exactly that. The Zags are so good, undefeated still. They won by 18, and they had everyone play well. Even if Suggs didn't have his best game, they still had enough other scorers, enough secondary scorers to come through and help, and they still played really good defense, and they just pulled through. They were clearly the better team the whole way.
Yeah, I think for me, the key was the fast start for Gonzaga, which they've had multiple times this year, where they just get ahead and they're just too far ahead because they were already up 10 at halftime, so Creighton was looking for a push, and it's so hard to get a big run in Gonzaga. So they consistently can throw the ball inside of Timmy. Kisper can hit the three. And they're just tough on the defensive end to go against. So, it was just a tough game for Creighton in general.
Yeah, and Creighton was a good team, too. Like, they had Zagrowski, a good player. Like, they're a well-coached team, but they just didn't have a chance from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to move on to another game in that region, which was USC-Oregon, where USC ended up winning by 14 points. What did you think of this game?
This was a dominant performance. Obviously, the Pac-12 was way undervalued in the tournament, and USC was really, really good. Evan Mobley and Isaiah Mobley, USC hired their dad. Looked like it was a great hire. Got them this far. Obviously, they didn't have the best games, but they were still huge in the win. And Oregon, I thought, was a good team all year, and USC was clearly just better.
Yeah, I think you hit on it. The Mobleys were huge, but also the role players like Taj Edey and Isaiah White. They were huge from three, scoring 22 and 20 points. So that helped them out a lot. And USC, just with their length on the defensive end, just bothered Oregon so much. When they hit their 3-point shots, they're a really, really hard team to beat.
Mm-hmm.
And Oregon just ran into that really good team. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
So now moving on to the East Region Sweet 16 games, and starting it off with Michigan, Florida State, where Michigan had a pretty dominant win against Florida State. What did you think of this game?
I thought that Florida State was a really good team, so I thought they were going to be able to keep it close. But a couple too many turnovers, and overall Michigan was just better. Michigan played like the 1 seed. They played like the top 3 team they were all year. They got good play out of their front court. Hunter Dickinson is a great player. He played really well. So,
yeah, I think it came down to the Michigan defense. They held Florida State to 5 for 20 from 3, and that's what that Michigan defense can do. Make you throw out these contested 3-pointers that you really don't want. So even though they didn't play great in the offensive end, they put up 76 points. So that's a lot of points for not playing great on the offensive end, not shooting good from 3, not shooting good from the free throw line. So it was a really tough game for Florida State, but Michigan just has more talent and great coaching as well with Juwan Howard.
Yeah, Juwan Howard kind of reminds me of John Calipari when he first got to Kentucky. Brings in some good recruits, players like him, fans like him, coaches like him, and has immediate success. And this really is similar to that to me.
Yeah, and now moving on to the other Sweet 16 game between UCLA and Alabama, where UCLA won a thriller in overtime, 88-78. What did you think of this terrific game?
I thought Alabama was a really good team all year, but, you have got to make free throws. You've got to have better shot selection. They deserve to lose the game.
Yeah, I agree. From the free throw on, they were terrible. So, you can't miss, 10 or more free throws in a game and expect to win, especially down the stretch when you're getting fouled and it's like 1-and-1. You got to make those free throws, especially because they had good free throw shooting players, and they just struggled. For UCLA, though, on the offensive end, Tiger Campbell was huge. Juzang was huge. They're a really good team, very underrated going into the tourney, and they're proving why. They should have been letting the tourney.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people thought they were going to lose to Michigan State in the first round. They were down big to Michigan State in the first round. Like they just came out of nowhere. Like they just got it together and just went on a crazy surprise run. And it's been super fun to watch because they're an easy team to root for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like they just got so many fun players, got a fun coach. It's just a fun organization in general, coming from the first four to the final four. Now that we know that, but just an incredible run.
Yeah, it's just awesome. They've done everything well, and it'll be interesting to see what Mick Cronin does going forward.
Absolutely. So now moving on to the other side of the bracket, starting it off with the South region and Baylor Villanova, where Baylor just continues to plow through opponents, beating Villanova 62-51. What did you think of this game?
I think it just showed how good of a team Baylor is, because Villanova is an incredibly well-coached team. You know, Jay Wright has done an incredible job, and you know they still have some top-end talent. Jeremiah Robinson Earl comes to mind, but Baylor played so well on the defensive end. They played well on the offensive end. Obviously, they didn't score 100 points or something, but they played well enough to win, and it was just super impressive.
Yeah, I think Baylor's relying on three-point shooting. I believe they lead the nation in three-point percentage. They didn't shoot well from three, and they still won by double digits. 3 for 19, you can win a game by 11. Baylor will take that all day. Their defense was huge. It seemed like Villanova had a chance, but then Baylor on the defensive end just forced turnovers, got out in transition, started running 16 turnovers from Villanova compared to 6. That was really the difference in the game.
Yeah, and then they got bench scoring from Flagler, while Villanova had 6 bench points total.
Yeah.
So you can't have that in a tournament game when the other team playing Baylor isn't shooting well. So Villanova had an opportunity to win this game, but Baylor just showed that they can win any game.
Absolutely. And here's a team that could have won this game, came oh so close. Oral Roberts versus Arkansas, where Arkansas ended up winning by 2 points. So what did you think of this?
I mean, I think Oral Roberts is the best 15 seed of all time.
Yeah.
They should have won this game. They definitely could have won this game. You know, Moses Moody was really inefficient from the floor. And, you know, they had the opportunities. They just couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, I think Max Asmus, who came in leading the nation scoring, just played incredible. Had that, final shot, which was a really good shot with only a few seconds left. But he played his heart out. O'Banner probably should have taken more shots. Only had 12 points. In other tournament games, he's taken way more shots. But for Arkansas, I mean, Moses Moody has got to play better. He's the SEC Freshman of the Year and just did not play well. But in the end, Arkansas, even though they don't shoot threes, they can still put up points on the board. And they just won by 2 by 1 bucket, really.
Yeah, exactly. And they get to the Elite Eight. You know, they got a lot of good – they have a lot of talent. They recruited very well this year. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what they do going forward. But definitely a big success for Eric Musselman this year.
Yep. And now moving on to the Midwest region. And the hometown team, Loyola Chicago, faced Oregon State. Oregon State came out on top, but what did you think of this game for the Ramblers?
I was really disappointed. I thought they could have won this one. I thought they just kind of beat themselves. Krutwig got kind of shut down, didn't really play as well as usual. And then Thompson for Oregon State just absolutely dominated.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with both those points, but the point of Krutwig, because they run their whole offense through him, and if he's, getting double teamed and no one's getting open, it's just tough for, them to create shots. And a lot of people just struggled on Loyola. Williamson was 3 for 11 and a lot of low shooting percentages. They only shot 33% for the game. And it's very tough to beat a team. And Oregon State also had 20 free throws compared to Loyola's 24 actually. But still, a lot of bunch of chances to capitalize against this Oregon State team. Then Oregon State would just these tough shots like Lucas hit that step back 3. That's tough.
Yeah, and Oregon State picked to finish last in the Pac-12 by nearly everyone and now made it all the way to the Elite Eight. That's awesome. But one thing you kind of hit on was free throws. Oregon State shot 90%. Loyola shot 70%. So while 70 is not bad, it's not 90, and it's just those kind of things that lose you games.
Yeah, and absolutely, because, a few points then it would be a different situation with fouling and stuff. So you never know what might happen. And free throws, always a huge thing in the tournament. And this year especially, they've been absolutely huge.
Yeah, huge or killer, depending on who you are.
Right, absolutely. So now moving on to the last Sweet 16 game we will be covering, which is Syracuse Houston, where Houston dominated the whole game against the Orange. So what did you think of this game?
Houston was clearly just the better team. Syracuse, because Houston has some really good on-ball defenders, so once Buddy Boeheim got kind of locked down, there wasn't much going for Syracuse. And then even with their 2-3 zone and the nightmares it can cause, Houston was just able to pull through. They just looked better.
Yeah, I think Houston only shot 38%, but when Syracuse is shooting 28% and 21% from three, you probably have a good chance of winning. And like you said, locking down Buddy Boeheim, he was 1 for 9 from three. That was huge because no one else on the Syracuse team was really going to consistently beat you. You might see flashes out of Joe Girard, but next thing you know, he's throwing a terrible pass. So Houston was looking good in this game. Although not pretty, winning by double digits is always nice.
Yeah, and they just got a couple, like their best guys played well. Quentin Grimes, Marcus Sasser, both those guys, 12 and 14 points. You need your best guys to play well to win, but Houston really won this game with their defense.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So now going on to the Elite Eight game in the West region, Gonzaga and USC, where Gonzaga seemed to control the pace the whole game. So what do you think about those Zags?
I mean, after this game, USC played so well the whole tournament too, and then Zags made it look like they were nothing. They made it look like they were another one of those random teams in their conference, but they're just so good. They just keep scoring. They play defense well enough. They don't really have a weakness.
Yeah, I agree. Drew Timme really dominating inside early against Evan Mobley was huge for them. Even though Kispert shot 3 for 10 from 3, which is super rare, Gonzaga still with a terrific game. Their defense is locked down every single game, and they just don't let anything easy by them. You're going to have to hit a bunch of shots in their face to beat them. And USC, after being down 19.5, they just couldn't come back. It was just too much. Those Zags, they just keep running in the tournament and on the floor.
Yeah, and USC, like you mentioned, they were a good team. They were down 19.5, and it was they just had no shot. Zags were just better in every way. Yeah.
Anytime they had a run, Gonzaga would just bounce right back, hit a three. Suggs would go down for a layup. It was just a tough night for the Trojans.
It's a tough night for whoever plays Gonzaga.
Absolutely. So now moving on to the East Region game between Michigan and UCLA, where UCLA barely squeaked by Michigan. One of the best games so far in March Madness. So what did you think of this game?
Yeah, that was my favorite game. Once again, UCLA was just an incredible story. Johnny Juzang played incredible, but I don't know how you missed that shot at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Franz Wagner, he missed it pretty bad, but I'm not sure about having the ball in Franz Wagner's hands. He was 1 for 10, 0 for 4 from 3. Shawnee Brown is their sniper. I think you got to get him the ball. Even though he's a bench player, he's probably the best and most consistent shooter on this Michigan team. And yeah, I didn't really like that coaching decision by Juwan Howard, but still a very successful season for him. But I'm more going to focus on UCLA and the way they played. Johnny Juzang played great the entire game, but especially in the first half. Michigan could have easily been up double digits, and Juzang just consistently was hitting these tough fadeaway shots. And I know it probably hurts for you to, watch him play out,
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's a bucket getter. Every time he touches the ball, it seems like it's going to go in.
Oh, for sure. And it's kind of bittersweet. I'm rooting for him because he was a great kid and stuff. It's just hurts that he's not doing this at Kentucky because, this is exactly what they needed. He can shoot, he can score, he can do everything. But him and Tiger Campbell are, one of the best duos to watch. They're both so fun. And once again, this game it felt like it was a lot more, high scoring. But, I felt like there was more action at the time, but it was only 100 points scored in the game.
Yeah.
So it was just a really fun game. It was one of my favorites in the whole tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But you will see UCLA in the Final Four, so that should be awesome to see them against Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
So now we will be moving on to the third Elite Eight game between Baylor and Arkansas, where Baylor just consistently continued to dominate. So what did you think of the Bears?
Yeah, Baylor felt like they were in control the whole time. It did get close at points, but they always kind of kept Arkansas like out of reach. And once again, like this game, they were a lot more better. They were a lot better offensively than they were in their previous game. They can win every way. They've got great guard play, great coaching. Like they've done a great job in this, and they just look like they have everything they need.
Yeah, I think the key for Baylor was Davion Mitchell, who picked up 3 really early fouls, and then you could see once he got back in the game, the defensive intensity for Baylor was way up. The offense was huge because every time Mitchell would bring out, a center on a switch, he would just blow right past him like it was absolutely nothing. And he's a tremendous athlete, one of the most exciting players in college basketball to watch, in my opinion, the best. But I love watching him play, and then Teague with some clutch shots, but it was all set up by the guards. Mitchell and Butler, they did a terrific job facilitating and creating open shots. And if Baylor gets those open looks and can knock them down, they can beat anyone in the country.
Yeah, exactly. And they shot 53% from 3 in this game. And while that is a bit unsustainable, Baylor is the team that can do it if anyone can. And they just, once again, have everything you need, even without getting as much bench production as usual. They still got 25 points. They're deep. They have top end talent. They have great guard play. They can definitely win. They'll definitely give Gonzaga a run for their money.
Absolutely. So now moving on to the last Elite Eight game between Oregon State and Houston, where Houston dominated mostly the whole game. So what did you think of this game?
Well, Houston, once again, they've had kind of an easy run to the Final Four, but this game was a little bit closer. I thought Oregon State had a shot for a while, but Houston just kind of they held on. They were clearly the better team, even though I think they really won this game with rebounding because they got way more shots. They had 15 more shots than Oregon State did, even though they shot a lower percentage. So I think Oregon State was a fun story, but it was kind of like this was clear that this was going to be the end.
Yeah, I feel like Houston, they didn't completely deserve this, but at the same time, they continued to work on the glass. 19 offensive rebounds in an Elite Eight game. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. And it's not like they have anyone like huge. They don't have like a Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Davis or that type of player. They just hustled for those rebounds, and it paid off because Houston shot terribly from the field. Actually, way worse than Oregon State, 47% compared to 32, and still ended up winning. This team can just grind out any win, and although they didn't play in a strong conference, they're showing why they deserve that 2 seed.
Yeah, absolutely. And they, once again, going back to them and the on-ball defenders, they locked up Thompson, 3 for 12 from 3. They just played so well. Quentin Grimes, Marcus Sasser again played incredibly well. It's everything you need. Houston's like Baylor, but slightly worse, if that makes sense. Good guard play, well coached, but just can't shoot as well as them.
Yep, absolutely. So now moving on to some Final Four predictions. So starting it off with Baylor-Houston, who do you have winning?
I think Baylor's been a little more impressive in this tournament so far, and they've been kind of more impressive all year. They have once again great guard play, strong forward play, well coached, good shooters, depth. So I'm going to take Baylor in this one, but I think it will be like probably about 6-point game.
Yeah, I think it could be very close, but I'm going to go with Baylor. I just think their guard play is tremendous. They create so many open shots. They're going to move Houston on defense and create open looks for their shooters. And they've shot 40% from 3 this entire season, so I won't be surprised if they shoot that or better in this huge Final Four game. But I think the key will be keeping Houston off the offensive glasses. Baylor is not a great defensive rebounding team with Vital, who is not your typical center. He's more scrappy. He's not as tall. So I think rebounding will be what decides this game.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think it will end up being Baylor in the end, though.
Yep, I agree with that as well. So now moving on to the other Final Four game between the 1-seed Zags and the 11-seed UCLA. Who do you think will win?
Gonzaga. They're the best team since maybe of my life. I don't want to be biased. Maybe since like 2011 Kentucky. Like they're so good, and they just keep playing well. if I'm a betting man, I think it's like going to be like a 15-point spread probably. I'd probably because right now UCLA is plus 700. Throw $10 on UCLA. If they win, you win 70. If not, you win nothing. But Gonzaga just plays so well. They match up well with UCLA. I think Gonzaga wins this game by 10, 15 points.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Zags are going to dominate. Not trying to take anything away from UCLA, but their just talent is not there compared to Gonzaga. They have Johnny Juzang, and that's about it. Tiger Campbell is a little bit undersized. He's going to have trouble against like Suggs, those guys who are like 6'7", very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
But if UCLA pulls off this upset, I mean, this would be the biggest upset ever probably, because compared to a 15 seed beating a 2, I mean, this is the Final Four.
Yeah, and this is the best team. This is the best team, too.
Yeah, clearly the best team going into the tournament, undefeated, nothing on their record. If UCLA wins this game, I mean, it is going to be crazy. But that's what March Madness is all about. You never know who's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited. I'm probably more excited for the Gonzaga UCLA game just at the thought of there being like the possible upset than I am at the Houston Baylor one. But either way, both games are going to be super good. I'm super excited.
Yeah, the possible 11 seed.
Yeah.
They can make it to the finals. That would be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to predict the championship game. I believe we both had Baylor Gonzaga. So who do you have winning that game? And a score prediction.
Well, I'm going to pick Gonzaga to win. It's kind of the bet. I picked Baylor in a bracket, but I got to go with Gonzaga. They're playing so well right now. They're winning by all these, like, I think they have like the largest margin of winning by any Final Four team ever, like largest point differential. So it's kind of hard to pick against them and just how they're playing.
Yeah, I'm going to predict Baylor. I think it's going to be a very close game, as most people would probably guess, between the consensus two best teams in America, pretty much. So I'm actually going to pick Baylor. I think it will be a very close game because it's just the two best teams, I believe, in this entire tournament, the entire season from the start. I think I've mentioned Baylor's guard play is terrific, but I think the game will come down to three-point shooting. And I feel like Gonzaga has not been great this tournament run, and Baylor's really turned it on from three-point range. And I think if they come in there and Baylor shoots, 50% with 10 makes, I think it's going to be tough for Gonzaga to beat them, even though they can get out and run. Forcing Gonzaga into tough shots when they're down would be the key. So I think Baylor could win this game, but I'm just super excited because that's the matchup. I mean, that's the matchup everyone's been dreaming of, for a while.
Yeah, for the whole season. These have been like you said, two best teams the whole way, playing it out. Two best teams in the tournament. It'll be so fun to watch this game if it happens.
Absolutely. It should be an amazing finish to a crazy March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
So now moving on to the NFL, and they announced a change, which would be the regular season is now 17 games instead of 16. Do you like that?
Not at all. Although it is fun to have the extra game for being a fan. There's no more 8-8 teams. There's no more you have to be like 7 and
10.
Yeah, 7 and 10 or like 8 and 9 or something like that, and it's not the same. 16 games works perfectly too with like divisions and like divisions of 4, 16 games. It just makes sense to me. And also, this is the main reason why I'm against it. Not only for the players and stuff, they don't want the 16th game, and I agree with them because they are the players, and I'm always pro player. But now all the single season records and all that is going to be ruined. So I'm just not a fan of that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on the point of the records, but I like this in general from a fan's perspective because you get to see another game, another chance to watch your players. Obviously, the NFL players, a lot of them did not like it, but some do like it because they like to play football. It's another game. But the thing about, just playing an extra game, if it doesn't have to do with injury, is, other teams go to the playoffs. Like, for example, a team who doesn't make the playoffs, they play one more game. I mean, most teams play, if they go into the playoffs, you're playing another game. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, the Buccaneers played 20 games total last year, maybe 19. So I don't think it matters from that perspective. But from the records, I mean, it's just not a good move because now they're just going to be, all messed up because you have one extra game to get those passing yards, those rushing yards or whatever.
Yeah, and you and me as Peyton Manning and Tom Brady fans who both have a lot of records, it's going to be kind of hard. It's more frustrating for us than I think it would be for most people because it'll be like watching our favorite players' records like get broken and stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat them, but, Mahomes is getting up there already, so we will see for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So now, moving on to a Chicago sports segment. As opening day is today when we are recording this, so what do you think the Cubs' record will be?
I think probably around 500. I'm going to go with 84 and 79. Right? That's right. I don't know. They just haven't done, like, getting rid of Yu Darvish, their best pitcher. They haven't made any crazy moves this offseason. Obviously, they bring in guys like Jack Peterson and stuff. But overall, I don't think that really makes up for, like, what they didn't gain. Like, they needed more pitching, and I don't think they really got that. So I'm going to pick about that.
Yeah, I think they could win, 85, 90 games and something like 70 losses or something around there, 70, 75 losses. I think this team will have a bounce back year, but the problem I have is with Chris Bryant, and he just has not looked good in spring trading. He hasn't looked good, the past couple of years. And Rizzo also, hoping he picks it up. And I think if Rizzo and Baez and Bryant can pick it up, I think this team could get into the playoffs, especially with the division that they're in. It's kind of unknown at this point how teams are going to do, how Yelich is going to be. We don't know.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals will probably end up winning the division just with, adding Nolan Arenado is kind of hard to not win the division when they were close last year. But it's gonna be like they're gonna definitely be able to compete. But it's really just how that pitching staff will hold up, how the bullpen will be. Some of the same usual concerns, like you mentioned, Baez, Bryant, Rizzo. This is kind of a make or break year for them and the Cubs in general, because this is like Rizzo's up for an extension, Baez is up for an extension, Bryant up for an extension. Like, do you give these guys extensions or do you trade them? What do you do with them?
Yeah, it's a tough situation for sure for the Cubs because they just haven't performed in the regular season or the playoffs. So, you got to get younger, and the Cubs right now, Chris Bryant is already getting up there in age, which is crazy.
Yeah, I felt like he burst onto the scene like a year ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but I think one thing too that really needs to work is Jake Arrieta, which is kind of random,
Yeah.
But they really need more guys that aren't Kyle Hendricks in the pitching rotation to like help out, and he's one of them.
Yeah, I agree. So now moving on to the Chicago White Sox, and Eloy Jimenez had an injury, which was a torn pectoral, so he's out for 5 to 6 months. So how do you think that will impact the White Sox record, and what do you think their record will be?
I think they'll probably win about 95 games or so, like about 10, 15 more than the Cubs. But Eloy Jimenez being out is huge. One of their best hitters, if not their best. One of their best players, if not their best. He's kind of like one of the faces of the franchise. And he being out they won't be able to have like the same hitting. Obviously, their pitching is still a bit of a concern. But I think they addressed a lot of the main things, adding like Lance Lynn. But overall, I think they'll still be okay.
Yeah, I think in a weak division with Lindor leaving too, I think they should be pretty strong. They should have 95 wins, maybe even 100. Might be a little bit overboard, but still, this White Sox team is very talented. They're young. They have hitting. They have pitching. They improved the bullpen a ton. And they still have a lot of like good prospects who've yet to step onto the stage like fully yet to have a full season. So this is the season where the White Sox should be able to dominate. So I would say 95, 100 wins.
Yeah, and I'm super interested to see. You mentioned prospects who haven't played yet. Michael Kopech opted out of last year. Yeah. He's back. He throws heat. So it'll be interesting to see what he does too. I'm excited for him.
Yep. And if you are interested in learning more about the White Sox and their expectations for this year, you can check out my story on the North Star, NNHS North Star, with an interview from Len Casper, who is currently the White Sox radio broadcaster and former play-by-play broadcaster for the Cubs. So if you would like more information on the White Sox, go ahead and check out that story. So now moving on to the Chicago Bulls, who had some new acquisitions at the trade deadline and are currently 19 and 27. So what have you thought of those additions like Nikola Vucevic, and what have you thought of the Bulls so far this season?
Well, I loved these moves. The Bulls just upgraded their whole front court. They went from Wendell Carter and Daniel Tice to Vucevic, or they went from Wendell Carter and Daniel Gafford to Daniel Tice and Nikola Vucevic, both huge upgrades. I love these moves. I think it's exactly what they need to do. If they can kind of start getting the ball rolling a bit this year, obviously they've lost 5 games in a row, but if they can get it going this year, they're only 3 games back. 4 games back of the 8 seed, and so they're still in a spot for a play-in game. So I think they have a shot to at least like do something. So hopefully the pick isn't too high. But I like the moves for the Bulls. I think it's exactly what they needed, and it's bringing winning basketball back to Chicago.
Yeah, I agree. Vucevic has been in Orlando for a while, just hovering around, making the playoffs and missing it. So I feel like he can really elevate this Bulls team. Obviously, not a ton of expectations for the rest of this season. Probably not a championship contender or close to that. But, for the coming years, they got a really good core with Levine and Vucevic. Picking up Tice, who although is a bit undersized, is a pretty solid shot blocker, as he had a great block a couple nights ago. Can hit the threes, really improved. And it's funny because we would have seen this combo maybe in Boston with Vucevic and Tice, and it ends up in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Chicago swooping in for Vucevic. Just a great move.
Yeah, and most people thought that Vucevic wasn't even going to be available. And then Arturas Karnisovas went out, made the move. I love it. Now they have a duo. This is the best duo. Vucevic is the best big man they've had since Joakim Noah. Only Bull to ever average 26 points and 11 rebounds. So I'm a huge fan of the move. I'm super excited for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And another team that's been pretty exciting this year is the Chicago Blackhawks. We're currently 17-15 and 5. So what are you liking about the Blackhawks season so far?
Well, I liked it a lot more a little bit ago, but now they've been kind of sliding down. 4-6 in their last 10. Haven't been playing as well, but I like the impact they're getting from the rookies and the young guys. This season was never meant to be something special. They were never going to do incredibly well without Taves and Doc for most of the year. Obviously, Doc is back, which is awesome. But I think it's all about just getting the young guys playing, let them keep playing, let them keep developing, because they've done well, and they're the future. So I'm excited to see what they can keep doing.
Yeah, I think the young guys from Chicago really shine. It used to be a lot of veteran play, but now you look at their point totals, and after Patrick Kane, there's not a ton of older players. DeBrincat, Kubalik, Suter. It's just an incredible trio of players on a bunch of lines that are just really young, and they can just develop and turn into terrific players.
Yeah, exactly. And 2 of the top 4 or 5 rookies this year are both Blackhawks. Kevin Lankinen looks like he's a long-term solution in goal. P.S. Suter's been incredible. Both those guys, if it wasn't for Kirill Kaprizov, they would be near the front of the Calder race. So I'm a big fan of Kevin Lankinen in general. So I'm super excited for him going forward, and I hope they just keep getting the young guys playing. Hopefully they can make the playoffs and keep kind of growing and kind of get it turned around here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see Kirby Doc back as well.
Yep.
He's been back for a few games now, but still, after that injury, I believe for Team USA, was it?
Team Canada.
Team Canada.
Yeah.
After that injury from Team Canada, excited to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is the key. He's like their next Jonathan Taves. Like, he needs to play well, and I think he will. But, a wrist injury, he's been off the ice for a while. It'll take him a little time to get back, so I'm not rushing into anything, but I'm super excited for him as well.
Yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the Blackhawks season. Mm-hmm. And a lot of sports now starting up for Chicago. So that should be exciting with the Cubs and White Sox starting today. The Bulls continuing their season. Blackhawks continuing their season, both in the playoff race. So that will wrap it up for the Game Time Show. So for my partner, Alec Einstein, I'm Adam Oppenheim. Thank you for watching.